Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, I've been talking to some people. I've been thinking about the last chapter of One Piece over the past day or so. Again, spoiler warning if you have not read the latest chapter. Trying to understand how Wano is really going to work. Obviously, we know Big Mom is now here in Wano, but it seemed to many of us, I think almost all of us, that it is a bit too soon and we're trying to rationalize that. Let's make this clear first and foremost. Big Mom is not going to leave Wano before the Fire Festival. In fact, the story has to lead into the Fire Festival, in my opinion. There's no reason why Oda would devote so much of this story to explaining it, and we don't actually get there. However, with Big Mom being here when she is, it seems like it's inevitable that she's going to have some kind of fight with either the Straw Hats or Kaido, which puts a huge dent in whatever it is that we were thinking before. I think that some things are difficult to explain, but kind of intuitively obvious in a way. Like, even if you don't know how to explain it, your brain works in such a way that it's just like, it makes something obviously, either possible or improbable. And so in this case, having, Big Mom fight Kaido, while the Strats are planning this Fire Festival infiltration to take on the Shogun, and a fight between Kaido and Big Mom would obviously be catastrophic, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Likewise, as the Straw Hats and allies are planning to do what they're going to do, and the Big Mom pirates start to hunt them, I don't think that Kaido would be okay with that. I don't think that they're going to team up with Kaido, but maybe they do. I feel like that's also GG for the plan. At the point in which Big Mom is actually there, then you have bigger things to worry about than the Shogun. And really, would the Fire Festival even go live at all if Big Mom is somewhere in Wano? I personally think that not even the Shogun would throw a party if Big Mom was roaming around Wano somewhere, or actively engaging in a fight with Kaido, which the Fire Festival is supposed to be honoring. So as I said earlier, guys, I've been talking to people, I've been reading comments, I've been thinking about this, and I want to share some observations that I have, some beliefs that I've formed over the course of the day to create a headcanon. Something that I personally believe in, and I think that I can convince others. But before we get into it, I want to let you guys know that it is still far too early for me to be able to share any panels from the most recent chapters, so don't expect those. I'm going to be referencing them in a lot of cases, and it would be very prudent to show them, but it's too early. The chapter is not officially released yet. But yeah, I suppose that I'm going to start here. During my first reaction to the last chapter, I got something very crucially wrong, which is I assumed that Big Mom and her ship actually made it over the waterfall, and so when Big Mom actually fell into the water, I assumed that the same thing would happen to her as what happened to Luffy earlier in the story. He got drawn into this giant whirlpool and then just somehow ended up in Wano. So I thought, well, Big Mom's going to somehow end up in Wano. But when you look at the panels a lot more closely than I did before, it becomes very apparent that Big Mom's ship, after King attacked it, it didn't actually go over the waterfall. It fell back into the sea before the water climbs up the mountain. And so, of course, I don't believe that Big Mom is going to drown. The Big Mom pirates are going to be completely fine. But why this is important is because before I assumed that Big Mom had already made it into Wano. She would drift into Wano. But if she didn't actually go over the waterfall, then she is not in Wano yet. That's important. I want to point out a line specifically said by one of Kaido's subordinates in the last chapter because I find it to be very, very significant. This is the translation. Entering the country by waterfall is beyond what we expected. Guys, Kaido knew that Big Mom was coming and had prepared for it. However, they did not expect Big Mom to come over a waterfall. So this tells us that there are other entrances to Wano and that those entrances were guarded. I believe that this also suggests that Big Mom was aware that the waterfall or waterfalls were not being guarded. It seemed as though she tried her hardest to pull a fast one on the Beast Pirates, take advantage of their weakness, and get into Wano before they could stop her. Here's another line that I found to be significant, again by one of the subordinates of Kaido. But we're not prepared at all to face her on top of the waterfall. This tells us that at least this subordinate believes, and I think Kaido would believe this as well, that if they had known that Big Mom would have tried to utilize the waterfall, then that also would have been an entrance that they could have blocked. And really, if anything, this chapter supported that idea because King, who reacted very, very quickly, was actually able to stop the Big Mom pirates from going over the waterfall. Now the ship is God knows where, The Big Mom pirates have to deal with that situation. Big Mom herself is drowning, and time will pass. Time enough to give the Beast Pirates an even greater opportunity to defend the waterfall just as they're defending all the other entrances. If you sort of add this in with Kaido's belief that he could actually stop Big Mom from entering Wano, the kind of situation that this creates, it seems to me, is a stalemate between Big Mom and Kaido just outside of Wano's borders. Because it is difficult to enter Wano for whatever reason, including the waterfall, it makes the island very defendable. So going back to the problem that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it doesn't really seem to be as much of a problem anymore, because the kind of situation that seems to be created here based on these lines is that Big Mom actually will not be in Wano until much later in the arc. She will be waiting outside, either biding her time, waiting for allies, or formulating some kind of plan. If anything, guys, I think that this will act as a somewhat significant distraction to the actions of the Straw Hats in Wano. With Big Mom waiting outside, Kaido, the Beast Pirates, and the Shogun will be looking there. But just because Big Mom may have failed here, I don't think that she does not have an alternative plan for possibly getting into Wano and capturing Luffy. I want to point out another line to you that I found to be of some significance. As King took out the Big Mom Pirate's ship, he says this to himself: "What did you think that you could do with just one ship?" In my experience, guys, Oda does not say these kinds of things for no reason. I just don't find it to be the intuitive thing to think. In that kind of situation, it seems kind of forced in there, almost as a hint. Now, I know that Big Mom is in many ways memed by the community because of her repeated failures, and a lot of people don't respect her power or her intelligence or her ability, frankly, as a Yonko. But from the beginning, Big Mom was painted as an intelligent schemer. And I think that we got a little taste of the complexity of some of her plans in Whole Cake Island with the whole kill the Vinsmoke. Did you see how intricate that was? That's how Big Mom probably thinks. And so frankly, it just seems absurd that Big Mom, she's trying to take advantage of the weakness of the Beast Pirates. Here's her one entrance, and she brings her entire crew on one ship. Literally, if you separate this out into like 10 ships that we got to see at the end of Whole Cake Island, then the king cannot stop them all at once. You're able to create a battle at the top of the waterfall and allow Big Mom to sort of squeeze her way in. Obviously, it is not a 100% thing, but King didn't say what he said for no reason. Had there been more ships, they had a higher likelihood of success. So guys, I know that some people out there will not buy this or will refuse to buy this, but I'm going to argue from the perspective that Big Mom actually lives up to her hype as a Yonko and really does something that would make us praise her. So just keep that in mind. This is a positive spin. So what if Big Mom actually expected what ended up occurring as a legitimate possibility and created a secondary plan in that case? What if she brought more than one ship, and the other ship, completely unnoticed, has actually made it into Wano? So there's a couple things that I need to speculate. First off, guys, it seemed as though all of the Big Mom pirates were actually riding on that one ship, but there were several key members of the Big Mom pirates that we didn't get to see, and their absence is curious. First and foremost of this group is Katakuri. Now, a lot of people think that Katakuri was injured from his fight with Luffy, and so he stayed back in Whole Cake Island, or maybe he stayed back in Whole Cake Island in order to defend it. But if you're Big Mom and you're planning on potentially challenging Kaido, you're not leaving behind your strongest subordinate, I guarantee you. That's dumb, even for memed level Big Mom. Also, Perospero, who suffered as much, if not more damage than Katakuri, he lost his arm, is already healed and fine, and he accompanied the Big Mom pirates. So even though we didn't get to see him, I 100% believe that Katakuri is there somewhere, and the fact that Oda didn't show him on the ship is curious. And so another thing that I think that we need to speculate is that Big Mom seems to be going up this waterfall, but as it was pointed out to me by Eric of the Red Force podcast on Twitter, he's noticed some differences between the waterfall that Luffy climbed up and the waterfall that Big Mom has. Now, I'm not 100% sure they are different, but I fully buy the possibility that there is more than one waterfall. So what I'm suggesting, guys, is that as Big Mom was heading to get into Wano and was noticed by the Beast Pirates and started going up the waterfall, there were several other ships, possibly smaller, unnoticed, with people like Katakuri, Snack, Cracker, and Oven in them, entering Wano from other locations. Now guys, let's speak from the perspective of Big Mom. Like, Big Mom is trying to go into Kaido's territory in order to get Luffy, capture Luffy, as well as retrieve Zeus back. How exactly is she going to be successful in that endeavor, right? To go to Wano means all-out war with Kaido. If her plan really is to defeat Kaido and the Beast Pirates and the Shogun just to get Luffy back, the plan is just not that great. I'm just telling you guys, it's not that great. However, if Big Mom actually had another plan, which was to distract Kaido and the Shogun, maybe fight them a little bit for a period of time, while sending subordinates behind the lines to search out and retrieve and capture Luffy and the rest of the Strats, and then bring him back and then leave, that is a smart plan. If I'm thinking positively about Big Mom's intelligence, I like this. In this case, Big Mom made herself a decoy, and it is a fantastic plan. Kaido and everybody are going to be focused on her and not looking around Wano for her subordinates. I just like this so much more, and this actually makes some sense to me. As the Strats are sneaking around Wano, trying to keep their identities low-key. Obviously, Luffy is in prison, so it's kind of hard for him to do that, but everybody else is, for the most part right now, safe. The Big Mom pirates have actually entered Wano and will be searching for them. And this is where we get into the layers, guys. You guys know I love the layers. Obviously, we didn't get to see Katakuri on the ship, so it might suggest that maybe if you believe this, then he's one of the people that have snuck into Wano. Him and Luffy have some history. And at the end of Whole Cake Island, you get the impression that Katakuri is a huge fan. Maybe more ally than enemy. Now, of course, it's questionable what he may do. Obviously, his loyalties lie with the Big Mom pirates, and it's questionable as to whether or not he would sacrifice his duty in order to in some way aid the Strats. But in my opinion, guys, his presence in Wano would be more good than bad by the end. And I think another obvious person of interest might be Pudding. Now, so Pudding's status is questionable. Would Big Mom risk her? But I think that it's undeniable that in an infiltration mission, Pudding's skills would be very useful, both because of her acting ability and because of her ability to erase and replace people's memories. And so I don't know what Big Mom would or wouldn't do, but if you ask me, I personally would believe that Pudding, if this is right, Pudding also has made her way into Wano, which would be just another thing with layers. So I want to throw out a couple more ideas before we end this video of how Big Mom could sort of sneak subordinates into Wano if that is what she chose to do. First off is the idea of a submarine. If you tied the fish or whatever to a submarine, then they would be relatively low-key and could have been right along with Big Mom's ship if there is only one waterfall, but unseen. Another thing that has me curious is Brûlé and her mirror abilities. There seems to be a limit of the range of her abilities, like the mirror world that is created from her devil fruit. It doesn't extend across the world. We're not really led to believe. However, when she becomes close enough to something, it's not as though she has to create every single mirror, I don't think, in order to use it for her abilities. You can take an actual mirror like the one that was present on the Strat ship, and once it gets close enough to her, it becomes accessible via the mirror world. So theoretically, as the Big Mom pirates are heading to Wano, they got close enough that Brûlé's mirror world abilities allows her to transport specific subordinates across into Wano and out some kind of mirror that was already present there. Or if Big Mom wants to go next level, she could have had some hidden subordinates that were spying on Kaido, sort of place mirrors somewhere in the island beforehand. So yeah, with this idea, possibly before we got to see the Big Mom pirate, there are already subordinates in Wano. Or, you know, that isn't even necessary. It's possible that after we get to see them and they've crashed or sitting at the bottom of the waterfall, then they can sneak some subordinates in. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to throw this out here because I needed something to believe. When we first got this reveal, I was honestly confused, and I need some kind of headcanon to fill in the gaps. And this is the first thing, and so far the only thing that really fits for me. But as always, I'm curious as to what you guys think. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Do not forget the Reverie on Wednesday, the 23rd of January at 5 p.m. EST. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.